Hello and welcome to another Blender Cookie tutorial. This is David Ward, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to create a quick little basic rig for a sphere that'll help you get a nice squash and stretch effect for like a bouncing ball or something. Anything that's bouncing or anything that needs to squash and stretch as it's moving. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my default cube. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and Shift A, and I'm going to add a UV sphere right there. And I don't really need this many segments. Let's just put it down. We'll say 16 and 16. That'll be fine. Let's go into front viewport, one on your numpad, and let's just drag this guy up to above that red line, just above it. We're going to make that our ground plane, more or less. And when we rotate into perspective view, you can see that the grid ground plane there. So that'll act as our ground, or the surface that our sphere is going to be bouncing on. Okay, so we still got our 3D cursor right there in the center of the scene. If for some reason you've clicked off somewhere, you can just hit Shift S and snap the cursor to the center. Boom, puts it right back there where it starts out. Okay, so now I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to add an armature single bone. And so I can see it and see what I'm doing, I'm going to go over here into my bone settings for the armature, and I'm going to change it to X-ray so you can see it through the sphere. And I'm also going to change it to B-bone because you know me, I like B-bones better than any of the other style of bones there. Personal preference, you don't have to use B-bones if you don't want to. Okay, now we're going to go to Object and go down here to where it says Display and change this from Textured to Wire. And that way we can see what we need to see as far as the mesh goes, and then the bone will just kind of be just a basic wire shape there. Okay, so let's jump in here, hit Tab to go into Edit View, Edit Mode of our armature, and just grab the tip of the bone, and let's drag it down, and then grab the whole bone itself, and Control-Shift-S, oops, Alt-Control-S, sorry about that, Alt-Control-S, and we're going to make our bone a little fatter. You notice the further I drag my mouse off screen of Blender, it just keeps going, it comes back and around the surface there, so that's kind of neat. So, okay, we'll just drag our bone about so big, about yay big, as we say here in Oklahoma. Now I'm going to go ahead and Shift A, add another bone. You see it went ahead and put the base of it at our 3D cursor. Now if I would have just hit E to extrude from the base bone there, it just would have came out of the tip of that. But I want the second bone, so I'm going to Control Z, undo that. I want this bone to be lined up there at the bottom as well. So I'm going to grab the tip of it, I'm going to drag it up to the very top of the sphere. Let's zoom in here so we can get a nice, accurate representation there. About right. Okay. Now I'm going to Shift A, excuse me, undo that, Shift S, and I'm going to snap my cursor to the selected. It's going to put the cursor right there at the tip of that bone that I have selected. I don't have the bone itself selected, I just have the tip. Okay, so now I'm going to Shift A and do the same thing I did with this footer bone, basically, the bottom bone there. I'm going to drag it down to it's about right there, and then I'm grab the bone itself and, excuse me, Control-Alt-S, and we're going to make it a little fatter as well. There we go. And now one more thing I want to do is, let's go ahead and Control-Shift-S. My fingers are stupid. Shift-S. There we go. Cursor to center. Yes. And we're going to add another bone. Shift-A. And it just added a short bone here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that, if I can get a handle on it. There we go. And Control-Alt-S. Okay, make it fatter. This is going to be the main controller. So about right there will be fine, just so it encompasses everything. And just drag it up there. Okay, so now we have a foot bone, basically, a head bone, a body bone, and a main controller bone. So let's go ahead and name these. Hit N to open up your properties panel here. Select the big bone here, and let's just, where's it at? Not there. Drag down here till you see item. And we're going to name this master. And then select the bottom one, we'll name this one, oh, let's just name it bottom. And then this guy can be center. And then the top one obviously can be top. Okay, so we've got our quick little rig set up here, and it's amazing how efficient this quick little thing can be. Let's go into object mode, or excuse me, pose mode, and you know what? Let's pop back into edit mode real quick and set up some hierarchy here. We want to grab the center bone, and I want to parent it to the bottom bone. So I select the center bone first, shift select the bottom bone, Control P, and I want to go ahead and keep the offset. And then both the bottom bone and the top bone, select both of those holding down shift, and then select the master bone last, and then Control P. Also keep the offset. So now if I tab back out of edit mode, I grab the master bone, all the bones move with it. I grab this top bone, nothing moves, because it's a little trick I'm going to show you. Grab this bottom bone, and the center bone follows. So that's exactly the way we want. Now I want to grab the center bone, go over here to my bone settings right there. Let's go all the way down to deform, and let's give it a few segments. Let's just give it 10 segments will be fine. And one other thing you want to do before we go any further is let's go ahead and select this top bone, uncheck deform, the bottom bone, uncheck deform, and the master bone, also uncheck deform. So the only bone that we have that's going to be deforming is our center bone there. Okay, so let's do this real quick. Grab your sphere and then shift select that center bone, and we're going to Control P, and we're going to set the parent to the armature deform with automatic weights, and that'll be fine. So now anytime we move that bone, the sphere will follow. Now here comes the little trick I was telling you about. Select this top bone and then shift select the center bone, and we're going to Control Shift C, and we're going to stretch 2. So now anytime we move this top bone, our sphere is going to stretch out nicely, and then the bottom bone is going to stretch it upwards. So like when it's bouncing at the top, you know, the energy is going to be transferred up, and it's going to squish this way. Clear that out. And when it hits the ground, the energy is going to transfer downwards, and it's going to squish this way. So one thing, you know what? Let me do something here. This is not having the effect that I was wanting. So let's tab back into edit mode, and let's select this center bone, and it's still connected. You know what? I don't even really need to do what I was about to do, because you can do it over here in your settings. So just select your center bone and just click connected right there. Now the only problem is it moves the tip of the bone up. So when you tab back out of edit mode, you've got your bone is not the way it's supposed to be. So if we go back to our constraints and we hit reset, it'll stretch it back up to the top where it needs to be, but the bottom is no longer where it needs to be down here. So anytime you stretch, it's not gonna stretch at the base of the sphere like we want to. So let's undo that, clear that movement out. Now let's tab back in edit mode here, and let's drag this dot right here. Actually, just grab that bottom bone, and you can drag it down until that dot I just mentioned lines up with the bottom of the sphere. And then we can tab back out and go ahead and grab this bone and hit reset again. There we go. And now anytime you move the top bone, it's going to squish down around that bottom bone, and then same thing at the top. Well, not the same thing necessarily, because it's not connected to that bone, but this will help when you're getting some nice comical types of stretchy sphere. Boing, 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 like that. Okay, so that's basically the rig setup. Now I'll show you a quick little way to animate this to where it looks nice and fluid and like a nice bouncy ball in a cartoon or something. So let's split our window here like so, and let's go ahead and turn this window into our dope sheet, and slide this over and grab the action editor. Okay, So first thing I want to do is animate the master bone. And let's animate it starting off at the top. And we'll say about right there at that part of the grid, that section there. So we'll go ahead and hit I to insert location rotation scale keyframe. And let's go ahead and make this window a little smaller so we can see more keyframes over here. Let's go ahead and hit T to clear out the toolbar because we really don't need it anymore. And therefore we don't really even need the properties panel either. So just got our blank window there, blank 3D viewport. So as you can see, we got a yellow diamond here. That means we have a keyframe right there for this object, the master bone. So let's zoom in on our scroll bar here, our timeline, and let's go up to frame 10. So we'll go to frame 10, and we're going to drag this down until it's level with that red line, which again is our ground plane. And there we go. So we got our sphere. Actually, I need to turn on the auto keyframe insertion, and let's do that again. Boom, there we go. Okay, so now we got the sphere falling, and then let's go to frame 20, and let's drag it right back up to where it was, like so. So now we got our sphere falling and going back up. And we'll set up our stretchy bones to do what they need to do, and then we can loop that. Okay, so frame 0 is at the apex, however you want to pronounce it, of the bounce cycle. So that being said, the energy is going to be transferred to the top of the bone. So we need to grab that bottom of the bone and drag it up to where our sphere is nice and squished up at the top, like it hit the ceiling basically, an invisible ceiling sort of. So on our way down, when we hit the ground, we need to clear that out because the energy is now being transferred the opposite way. So let's hit Alt-G, and it automatically inserted a keyframe there. So you can see nice squishy effect when it gets to the top. Now it's going to release that that squish a lot faster than it takes the ball to go all the way down to the ground. So let's go to frame 3. Actually, we start on frame 1, and I want to go 3 frames forward. So let's go to frame 4 actually, and we'll go ahead and drag this down quite a ways past the bottom of the master box. So it's squishing, or it's stretching the sphere now instead of squishing it. So you can see, get a nice release of energy there. Okay, so we kind of got that going. Now, when we get to the bottom, the base of the bounce, we need to squish down. So let's grab the top one and drag it down on the z-axis, squishing the ball. And since we didn't move it at all before, we need to go ahead and hit Alt-G at the very beginning to clear out and give it the default pose, basically, a keyframe there. So now we're not going to get that traveling downward motion until the ball actually makes contact with the ground, which is about we'll go ahead and put it right on frame 9 because it's almost there. So let's go ahead and drag this back up. Actually, just hit Alt-G, and then boom. Actually, frame 10 might be a little too soon to start that ground stretch because it has to actually have time to transfer that. So let's just pop that up to frame 12. So if we look from frame 0 to frame 12, that's looking okay. But we need to immediately do like we did with the stretch bone on the bottom, and we need to do the same thing with the top bone. So by frame 15, this top bone needs to be coming back way up through there. So get a nice bouncy animation there. Okay, so we're not done yet. Traveling up, and then by the time it gets to the apex again, it's going to have cleared out. So Alt-G to clear that. And then also our bottom bone is going to start coming up again. So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and copy that pose right there over here. Just hit copy the current pose, and then we'll go to frame, go to frame 20 and paste it. So, bouncing up. And we kind of have the same situation again that we had with the top bone squishing down the ball. We don't want the bottom bone squishing up the ball until a couple of frames out from the actual apex. So let's grab that and hit Alt-G to clear that out. So we still got that stretched out, and then boom, when it hits the apex, it squishes back. Okay, so if we want to see this loop, we just set our end frame here to frame 20 because that's the entire length of our ball bouncing, and we just hit play, and you can watch it. That's a little rough, but you can sit there and play with it until it looks about how you want. Might even, you know what, let's do? To make that a little better, let's go to frame 10, and since our control bone is what controls how high our ball bounces, let's go ahead, actually, I guess it would be frame 0 and then frame 20. And let's go ahead and drag it up a couple of more, even one more grid frame. And then we'll copy that and we'll go to frame 20 and paste it. So now, if we watch it, it's a little bit better. So if we go to, scroll over here and go to, actually, I want to do that over here. Go to object mode, and we just move our whole armature to a different layer so we don't see it. We can watch our ball bounce without having the armature in the way. So like I said, it could use a little bit of work, but that's basically a nice rubbery, cartoonish, stretchy, bouncy ball. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.